Hey everyone, welcome back to another Hazy Talk. Today I'm going to do a tutorial showing you how to design vinyl for windows. So if you ever have a project where you want to elevate your windows, make them prettier, add some branding and identity to them, like if you have a storefront or anything like that, this is how you're going to do it. I'm going to walk you step by step on how to set up your files and how to export for prints. Stay tuned, I'll see you on the screen. Actually, before we get to the screen, I want to walk you through a few things that you have to do before you ever touch the Illustrator file. Number one, when you first get that project, one of the first things that you need to do is actually go to the location, go on site and grab measurements. You need a measuring tape and you need somewhere to document this stuff. Document it in a place where you will find it later, okay? Make sure that you are there with someone else. It's usually better to do at least in two people, okay? And what you're gonna do is you're gonna go window by window, and you're gonna measure each one. Now, as you're documenting the measurements, the specs of each window, you're going to have to label them in a way where you're going to be able to easily identify once you actually start designing, especially for your print ready files, okay? So in my case, I separated the windows by east and west, left and right, and then I had different layers, like different heights. So I had my first layer, second layer, third layer. And so then what I would do was, this was window number 1 on the east side, so I called it 1E. Window number 1 on the west side was 1 west, okay? Well, you're gonna do that in your document. At the same time that you're there, you're gonna take a picture of the location, and in that picture, doodle right on it using your iPhone, the labeling system, okay, your key that you just created so that you can remember it. So do east and west. I'm going to show you an example of this, okay? And then once you do all of that, you have your specs and you've labeled them clearly. The next thing that you want to do, like I mentioned, is grab your photo. Now the photo is really important because you're going to use it in your design file, okay? It's also going to be your mock-up and what you're going to use to pitch your idea. So take a picture, as good of a picture as you can. Make sure it's straight and as far back as possible so you can grab everything. If you're not able to grab a photo because there's not enough width or space for you to get far back enough to take a picture, then use Google Maps, okay? That's what I did. I used Google Maps. I put the little guy in the street and then I grabbed the angle that I needed, and that is what I used to mock up. You can see it right back here, okay? I'm gonna walk you through all of that stuff, but just remember, before you get into Illustrator, you need to have your measurements, whether you get them or somebody else. Make sure that they're labeled properly, that you understand the labeling structure, because you will use that in your files when you export for the vendor, okay? Now we're ready for the screen. Let's now jump into the screen. I'll see you. All right, now we're going to get into the software. We are going to be using Adobe Illustrator because it's a vector-based format, okay? Or software, I should say. And it's going to make your file sizes and managing all of that a lot easier. File sizes will be smaller and you're going to be able to keep the resolution that you want, okay? So you should use Adobe Illustrator. Now, when you open up Adobe Illustrator, you're gonna get a new document window. You wanna work in inches or in feet, okay? Now you make that decision depending on your specs. Remember that the first thing that you should be doing is you should go on site and document all of the specs for all of the windows. Well, based on those measurements, you decide how you're going to work, in feet or inches. It's a little easier to work in feet because the measurements are easier to track, but you don't always get the luxury of having perfect measurements, okay? So that's what you're going to choose. You're going to put your measurements here. Let's say the width is, I don't know, 10 feet by, I don't know, 2 feet. That's very small, I think. 20 feet, I don't know. You're going to add bleed once you get to your print file, which I'm going to walk you through. Make sure that you're working on a 300 resolution, and I usually keep my files in RGB. I don't change that. Now, you see this little warning symbol that you got? Illustrator actually has a limit on how big your files can be, okay? So let's bring it back down and that goes away, okay? If that happens, if your measurements are bigger than what Illustrator can actually take on, then you have to divide down. This is where math becomes a thing in graphic design. So what you would do is you would divide your specs, your measurements by 2, and then you would make all of your artwork in those measurements. Now you have to keep that in mind and make sure that you remember that every time so you don't screw up your files as you're working through them. You also want to make sure that the print vendor knows that in case they need to scale it on their end when they go into production, or they need to make any adjustments, okay? So that's what you're gonna do. Now I'm gonna close that window because I already have a file. Now, remember how I told you, you wanna document your specs and then you also wanna grab a photo of the location. It's going to actually be super beneficial to you to have a photo because you are not only gonna use it as a mock-up, you're actually gonna use it to start working and ideating, okay? So this is my file with my location, okay? And this is just one artboard that I have with my photo. It's not to scale, okay? My main priority right here is to get the ideas down, to get something on paper that I'm happy with, and then I'm going to actually submit this for approval. When I get an approval on that, then I'm actually going to set up my print files, which is a different thing. And I'm gonna walk you through that, okay? I have my layers right over here. Very important that you label your layers clearly. This is one of these projects where the more clear you are, the better it's going to be for you because it's very easy to just forget. Like, look how many windows are in this project. Maybe like 20 windows. I have this bottom set. I have this top set right here, and then the highest one up here. It's so easy to just get mixed up. Okay, so the more you label things, the better. So right here, these are my layers, okay? The first one is my photo, and I lock it because I don't want it to move around, okay? And you just name it whatever you want, okay? So this would be location, background, okay? My second layer that I have here is what I call the panels. These are the window panels. And these are basically the backgrounds of your art. So this would actually be the vinyl material, okay? And so when you start laying these things out, this is your background. When you start having art on here, whoop, why won't it? There we go. When you start having art on here, you don't want these backgrounds moving around. So I tend to label those as part of the panels and I keep that in a separate layer. Then on top of that layer, I actually have my artwork, okay? And this is where I actually start putting things down, okay? And I lock the layer underneath it. So as I'm moving this around, my backgrounds are not moving. I have this other layer called working assets. And what ends up happening is like, I'll be working on a bunch of stuff and I just have a bunch of ideas, you know? And so I'm working on all of that. As I'm making decisions and I start adding them to my artboard, I have all this extra stuff. So what I tend to do is I actually move those into my working assets layer and then I hide it. In case I need to go back to it, I just have it there in the folder. And then the last thing that I have here is basically my location laid over my artwork. Okay, so if you notice, let me hide these things again. My location has trees that are hiding windows, okay, and parts of the windows. And so when I put my art on here, I don't really get to see what it's actually going to look like. You see this panel here in front of that tree? It doesn't give me the right context. Because remember, this is how people are actually going to see it. Like when they walk on the street, they're going to see a tree right over here. And so you want to make sure you're placing art as true to context as possible. So then we did like a mask basically, and we put that over the art. So then we got a true idea of what this art is going to actually be. Okay. So we try not to put like important things behind the tree. Maybe we put art or something, or up here, you know, where you can't see it, okay? So I'm just gonna very quickly make something here with you. And I'm just going to do it quickly for the purposes of our time together, okay? So okay, so in all of these little things, so you want to make sure so here, I'm gonna, I don't have the true measurement of the, not measurement, I can't really see where the end of this window is, so I'm just gonna guess, okay? And more or less just go by my edges here and kind of just put that there. And then this next one goes over here. So the same thing, you kind of just want to lay it out as best as you can to kind of cover. And then remember, you're going to have that mask over it. So it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to give you a good idea, okay, of what you're doing. This is too big, so let me fix that right here. Okay, I'm going to duplicate that over. Just do your best to be as accurate, because you will take this art and put it into the print file and then fix it accordingly on there, okay? All right, let's go here. Let's put these guys in here. What did I do here? Did I just group this? Oh, that was weird. What was that? Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna let's just do that section for now. And let's pick a color. Let's go with, I don't want a gradient, so let me just go here and I just want a solid color. Okay, so let me just, I don't have a reference or anything. I'm just kind of winging it a little bit. All right, so let's say we want blue. Okay, let's go with royal blue. Okay, so my panels are in. Okay, now I'm gonna start putting my artwork together. So I'm gonna go into my artwork file. Sorry, artboard. Make sure the little eye is on. And you just start designing. So let's go with Helvetica, because Helvetica makes all of us happy. You can't see me right now, but okay. And so you're just going to start laying out your artwork, okay? And you just mess around with it. And because you have that mask over it, you can see how text is gonna fall. You see that cut between the P right here? That's another thing, you know, if you're going to have art that is supposed to go across a few windows, you want to make sure that when it cuts by the panel, that it's not getting cut off in a weird place. Okay, so this happy right now is not very easy to read. I have that tree in front of it. Now, if I were to do something like that, then that's a little bit better. Okay, so let's just do happy times. All right. And you just design it however you want to design the thing, you just do it. Okay. Did you know that Helvetica, I like to work with glyphs? So let me go type glyphs. I forgot to include the menu of the software in the recording. Okay, so let's say, you know who has good glyphs? Inter. The font Inter. Great, really good. See all these things here, all these arrows and things? Okay, let's do a little heart. Let's do the heart. Okay. So there we go. If you want to do a pattern, there we go. And then let me bring this down so it's a little bit more even. And you space all these things out, align to the, actually no, align to section. Let's do that. And if you want to replicate this on this window here, then you start building, you know, your ideas. So maybe this, you're like, well, this is the name of the store. So maybe, you know, this kind of just goes there. And then you make decisions like on the front window, should there be like times, right? Times, Instagram, like store hours is what I should put, not times. And then you change your font size and things like that. Let's go with regular. And then just consider things of like people walking by and the height of someone and the eye level of someone when they're reading things, you know. Maybe you want to put it in the middle, or maybe you say, you know, like a brand statement is going to go here, brand statement. You know, we'll go right there. And then you say that the times are going to go there. So you can make those decisions as you see fit. Okay? So I'm going to end it there, but you already get to see how this stuff is coming to life. These windows are coming to life now, okay? Now I'm going to show you how to set this up for print. So now you're going to take each window. Remember how I told you to label them? So you're going to go back to your spec document, and you're going to go based on how you labeled them. So let's say this is 2W right here. Okay. Make sure you unlock your panel layer, and you're going to bring it over, and then you're going to scale it to your size. Okay. Let me see something, because it might be this one. Why isn't this scanning? Well, you want to make it fit. I'm not using true measurements, so that's why I'm like, why isn't that fitting? But it should fit. Okay, so when you put it into your print file, you want to put it into the artboard. Now you see these red lines, these are the bleeds. Remember, when I told you in the beginning, you're setting up your art file, you're going to add bleeds. So if you go here, these are my my artboard is 49 by 109. Okay. And then I have a bleed here, which, let me see, I always forget where these things are. Document setup. You go to file, document setup. You see the bleed here, it's 5 inches, okay? The reason it's 5 inches and not the foot that I said earlier is because these are the limitations of the artboard in Illustrator. I can't go beyond this gray box here. And so in order to stick as many files into, as many artboards into a file, I decided to just do the 5 inches. Now, once you have your art moved over, then you add your bleed. Okay, don't add your bleed before. What did I do? Okay, don't add your bleed before, because you can screw up the actual spec. Like you might make this bigger than it needs to be, okay? And so then you grab your next little guy and you bring it over, and you do the same thing. See how this one fit a little bit better? But remember how I told you the mock-up is not going to be perfect. And then you align everything. Just make sure everything's aligned to the true spec. Okay, so you're going to go here, align to artboard. Okay, make sure this is centered vertically, horizontally, all that good stuff. Okay, and then you go in and you apply your bleed. And you're going to do that for each panel. Okay. And same thing with layers, be as specific and as clear as possible. All right, so have your artwork layer here, and then these are your labels. And I keep that there for me and for the vendor. Once we're good to go, you're going to save it, okay? And you save the files depending on how the vendor needs them. So obviously you're gonna save your working file, your Adobe Illustrator file, but maybe the vendor needs each window exported as a PDF in a specific resolution, whatever the case may be. Just follow their export recommendations or requirements, okay? And that is how we, or us designers, design and create vinyls for Windows, okay? Once you do this, the printer is going to print it, they should install it, and all of that bleed that you gave them, if your measurement was a little off, that bleed is going to save them, okay? Because what they're going to do is they're going to apply it, And any extra vinyl that they have, they're gonna cut it off. And so then your vinyl is going to look perfection. I'm going to show you, this is actually a file that we actually created for the design district at VOUS Church a few years ago. And this was the working file. And this is actually the final print file, as you can see here. And that is what we sent to the vendor. And it looked really cool. It was very beautiful. So if you ever want to elevate, upscale, add some identity to a location or your windows, this is a really great and inexpensive way to do it with vinyl. And it's really cool. It's fun to make. So I hope this was super clear and helpful for you. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Have the best day, and I hope this cleared some of your creative haze. I'll see you in the next video.